10 seconds.
Yes, right? Okay, good morning. Today's daf is daf Samach Gimel. We're going to pick up where we left off, 5 lines from the top on Samach Gimel Amud Aleph. So Amrav Yehuda, so we have a shalach, which is one of the birds that is listed in the Torah and is not a kosher bird. Zeh hashola dagim min hayam. This is a bird that gathers fish from the sea, and as we're going to see, Rashi says it's the orev hamayim. It's a water orev, but we're going to see that it's something that dives down and gets its feeds in that way. So that's what it means, that it's shola dagim min hayam. So the shalach, that's what it comes from. Duchifas shehodo kafos. So the bird that's called the duchifas, the idea is that hodo, its majesty, kafos, is bound, is tied down. So Rashi explains that karbeloso ava, that has a thick crown of feathers, vidoma kamisha kfulu l'toch harosh, it looks like it's folded over into the head, ukfusa, and tied, ukfusa sham, and tied down there. V'hu of gadol ketarnagol, it's a large bird like a tarnagol, v'karanlo, whatever, something in Laz. Okay, so so we have these two words. Shalach comes from shola dagim min hayam, and duchifis comes from, the du is from hodo or hodo, and kafus is kifas. Okay, tayanami hachi, we learned also similarly about this bird duchifas shehodo kafus, that its majesty or its glory is tied down. V'zehu, but this bird, zehu shahavi shamir lebeis hamikdash. This is the bird that brought the shamir to the Beis Hamikdash. So for those of you who remember, it's hard to forget, the Gemara in Gittin about Shlomo Melech wanted to find the shamir, the worm that cuts the rock, and if you remember, he made Ashmedai, the king of the Shadim, drunk, and eventually, if you remember, he brought him to Shlomo Melech. They waited a few days, a whole long story there. But then what happened was that Shlomo Melech asked, made Ashmedai tell him where he got it. He said that it's this bird that has the shamir worm. And then, if you remember, what happened was he went to the bird's nest. He put a piece of glass over the nest, so the bird couldn't reach his nest where the babies were. And then he brought the shamir there to break the glass, and that's when the Eved of Shlomo Melech took it, or the emissary of Shlomo Melech took it. So I think it was Ben Yoyada. So in any event, that's the reference. This same bird, this duchifas, is the bird that brought the shamir to Shlomo Melech when he needed it in order to build the Beis Hamikdash. Rabbi Yochanan kiavei chazi shalach. When Rabbi Yochanan would see one of these birds, this shalach, which is the one that gets its I guess it gets fish from the sea. Amar, he said, mishpatecha tahom rabba. That he says that your judgment, your mishpat, is in the very deep. So we're going to see in a minute what that means. Kiavichazi numala, when he would see a numala, an ant, amar tzidkascha kahareel, or tzidkascha kahareel, tzidkascha kahareel, that your tzedek, that your tzedakah is like strong mountains. So what's going on here? So Rashi starts first by saying tzidkascha kahareel dafilu numala islei chiyuso kigdola. So he says, why is the Rebbeinu Shalom's tzedakah so great? Is because even that he can support even a little thing like an ant. He can support an ant just like he supports a much greater animal. And what's mishpatecha? So Rashi says, af betahom rabba shezimanta shalach lishbot velasos nekamascha b'degas hayam lahamis hamazumenes lama. So Rashi says something interesting. He says Lashon Mori from his Rebbe is the idea that if someone, you can't hide from the Ribono Shalom. If it's a fish, it's time for it to die. So all of a sudden, there's going to be this bird that's going to dive down into the deep and get that fish. So that's mishpatecha. Rashi says af b'tohom rabba, that your mishpat, that your judgment is even in the depths of the sea, that you can't get away from judgment, and there's going to be this bird that's able to dive down into the depths. Lishna achrina, Rashi says l'namala hu amar tzikasla karayel, that it's to the ant he said, yeah, the tzedakah is like the mountains, shemazon naseha muzumanin la below tareach. He says that's what's the tzedakah. The great tzedakah is a namala, an ant can find food wherever it's looking for. V'mi she'ata nishbat ata danu ata haim rabbo kigon shalach shetarech levakesh shamazonosav. So he says, but if there's so an ant can find its food easily, but for something like this this bird, that it has to dive all the way into the depths of the sea in order to find its mizonos. So the tzedakah is with the namalu, can find it anywhere. The mishpat is with the this bird that the duchifis, that it has to dive all the way deep into the sea to find its mizonos. Okay, continues the Gemara. Amar Meimar Likni ubitni sharyan, that again, I don't know if I pronounced these right, and I don't try to tell you exactly what kind of birds they are. There's a lot of discussion of that, obviously, but likni ubitni are sharyan are permitted. Shikni ubitnai. So the likni and bitni are okay. The shiknai ubitnai. So the halacha is as follows: Makom shenagu lechol ochlin, makom shenagu shelo lechol oin ochlin. So it depends on the minhag of makom. If these birds, that if it was the minhag of the makom to eat them, then you would eat them, and if not, not. So the Gemara asks, Atu b'minhaga talya milsa. What kind of business is this? Does this depend on minhag? It's either it's kosher or it's not kosher. So the Gemara says, it does depend on makom. V'lo kasha is not a kasha. Ha ba'asri d'shchichi peres v'azniya. Ha ba'asri d'lo shchichi peres v'azniya. So he's saying as follows, that these shiknai batnai, according to Rashi, well, even according to Tosfos, which we'll see in a minute, but the idea Rashi explains is that these were birds that had one siman kashrus, right? And the idea here is that Rashi explains. We'll take a look. The shchichi sherinum shehuchzuku sham peres azniya asiri dahani nami b'chad siman asu v'shem miminam heim. He says as follows, that we see that if it's in a place that there are peres and azniya, and we see these kinds of shiknai batnai, which are birds that have one siman of tahara, so we're going to think that so it's possible that this is actually some bird that's part of a peres and azniya. Whereas in a place, Rashi says, Ba'asur de lo shchichi peres v'azniya, but if we're in a place where there's no peres and azniya, sharu, then it's permitted to eat it there. So as we learned yesterday, the peres and azniya are generally not found in settled areas. So Rashi is saying is as follows, that if we're in an area where peres and azniya are not generally found, so then you can eat these shiknai and batnai who are similar to it, because it's probably not a peres and an azniya. But if you're in a place where there is peres and azniya, you have to be concerned that maybe these shiknai and batnai are peres and azniya. Tosfos doesn't like this so much. If you take a look at the top Tosfos, he says, Perish HaKunshish, the ba'asur d'shchichi chashina mishum the damu leperes azniya, that we're in a place where it's common to find peres and azniya, these are similar to them. Shema minamhu. Maybe these shiknai and batnai are really a peres or an azniya. Says Tosfos, a kasha di'imkein b'chol duchta litzru. He says, if you're worried that shiknai and batnai are really a peres or azniya, so it doesn't matter whether that you find other peres and azniya there. It's just a bird that you're not allowed to have. So says Tosfos, elanir lefaresh, we should explain as follows: the vaday lav minayu heim. It's definitely not that they're an actual peres and azniya, because if so, it doesn't matter whether you see peres and azniya there or not, they would be aser. He says, Ela ba'asri the shchichi chashina mishum the damu peres azniya umichlefив behem. So he says that in a place where peres and azniya are commonly found, and these birds shiknai and batnai look like a peres and azniya, they're not. Tosfos says they're for sure not. They're not from its min, but since it looks like a peres and azniya, So you want to be careful that people don't come to eat paris and aznia. So in those places where paris and aznia are found, you should not eat the shiknai and batnai because people will end up eating a real paris and aznia. But if you're in a place where there's no paris and aznia found anyway, so then big deal. You could eat the shiknai and batnai because you're not going to come to mix it up and eat a paris or aznia because paris or aznia is not found there. So that's how Tosfos learns it. Okay. Okay, Amar Baya. Kui v'kakui asiri, that whatever these two birds are aser, kakausa sharia, but a kakausa is okay. B'marava malku ilave, but in the West, in Eretz Yisrael, they would give malchus on it, which we had yesterday. If you remember, we talked about the krazi de bechilfi, that we had those grasshoppers that were from the chilfi, from the sedge or the rush, and what happened was we said that those were mutter, and we say udve kravi asiri, that but the ones that come from the cabbage, those are aser. And Ravina said malkina nalayu mishum sheretz ov. So we talked about yesterday the idea of malkina nalayu is they're saying that it's a vadai non-kosher bird, and therefore you'll give malchus on it. So here also there was a dispute or whether the kakauso was permitted, and in Eretz Yisrael they held that it was mamish iser deraisa, and that's why they would give malchus if someone were to eat this kakausa. And continues the Gemara, v'karei tachvasa, that they would refer to this kakausa as a tachvasa, which was a not permitted bird. Tanar Abanan, tinshemes ba'os sheba'ofos. So now we're going to see tinshemes is something that is found in two different contexts, as we're going to discuss in a minute. It's found in Vayikra Yud Aleph in the beginning, and it's also found later in that parak. Once it's written in the context of the ophos tameos, the ophos that are tame, that are tame that you're not allowed to eat. And later on, it's found a tinshemes by when it's listing shratzim. So shratzim are different kinds of crawling things. So you see that this word tinshemes is found in both places. So it says in the Brisa, tinshemes ba'ol sheba'ofos, that the tinshemes is the bird that is ba'os. Rashi says, ba'ol sheba'ofos of hatzoek balayla. This is a bird that calls out at night. So we're actually going to see, according to one version, Rashi understands that to be an owl. But in any event, Ata Omer Bo Sheba'ofos, so Eina Ela Bo Sheba'shratzim. So the Gemara asks and says, wait a second. So he says, maybe this reference to Tinshemes that's written by the Ophos Tameos is not really talking about the Tinshemes bird. Maybe it's talking about the Tinshemes sheretz, to tell you that you can't eat the Tinshemes sheretz. So Amrit, the Brisa says that doesn't make sense. We know we have the 13. We say it, Rabbi Shmuel Omer, the 13 attributes that or methods by which the Torah is expounded, and one of them is davar halama minyano. That one is that you can figure out something from its context, from its setting. So therefore, b'mea kasum medaber ba'ofos. So where this word tinshemes is written amongst the birds. So afkan ba'ofos. So therefore, you have to assume that the tinshemes that it's referring to is also a bird. So that's why we say hainu ba'os sheba'ofos, that it's the ba'os, it's the bird that makes that calls out at night. That's among the birds. That's what we're counting among the birds that can't be eaten. Tanya Nami, we learned similarly gabe shratzim. Tanya Nami gabe shratzim ki agavna. We learned this way also by shratzim, because tinshemes. So the Brisa says that tinshemes, which is written in the parsha of shratzim, it says ba'os shebeshratzim, is the ba'os shebeshratzim. Rashi says tilfa, which I believe to be a mole. And Rashi points out there's tinshemes is written twice, as we said. So he's saying that tinshemes that's written by shratzim is the ba'os shebeshratzim, is a reference to the mole. So the Gemara says, Ata Omer ba'os shebeshratzim o eina ela ba'os shebe'ofos. Maybe the tinshemes that's written by shratzim is really a reference to the owl, or we're going to see in a minute that it's or the other option, which Rashi likes better, is that it's a bat. So he says, how do you know that when it says that there's tumah? Now, we're using the word tameh in different ways. We've been referring to ophos that are tameh, ones you can't eat. By shratzim, it's a din in actual tumah, that they convey tumah. So maybe what it's coming to say is that amongst the parsha shratzim, when it refers to tinshemes, it's not referring to the mole. Maybe instead it's referring to the owl or to the bat. So the Gemara says, no, because the Brisa says, Amrit, they said, that you should learn from the 13 midos that we expound the Torah. That you can learn something from its context. But what's the pasuk talking about in this parsha toward the end of Vayikra Yud Aleph? It's b'shratzim. It's talking about shratzim, afkan b'shratzim. So therefore, when tinshemes is written in the context of shratzim, it's referring to a sheretz, which would be the mole, and not referring to to the tinshemes of birds. So it's saying that there's two different kinds of tinshemes. The tinshemes that's written amongst the birds is a bird, either an owl, it's a bat. We'll see in a second. And the tinshemes that's written among the shratzim is talking about a sheretz, which is talking about a mole. Amar Abaya, bo sheba'ofos kifof, bo sheba'shratzim korpedai. So that's where so Abaya says that this same bo sheba'ofos, which is the tinshemes bird, is a kifuf. So that's where Rashi says that it's either a tzuita, that it's a bat. Velinir, he says better, that it's called kalba shuritz shedoma letalfa shebeshratzim. So in other words, Rashi says he prefers to call it to identify it as a bat. Why? Because a bat looks like a mole with wings. So since the tinshemes amongst shratzim is a mole, so the tinshemes amongst birds would be the bat, and that's how Rashi defines kifuf. Bo shebeshratzim, and the reference to the mole is korpadai, which Rashi translates as talfa, which is a mole. Okay, Amrev Yehuda, kaas zu hakuk, that the bird kaas, which is one of the listed birds that's no good, that's a cook. Or if you look at Maseres Hashatz, it says it's a kik, which is a bird that they're familiar with from Gemara and Shabbos. Racham zu shirakrak, that the bird that's called a racham or rachama in some context is the shirakrak. That's the kind of bird it is. Amr Reb Yochanan says, Lamra nikra shmo racham. Why is this bird? Why do you have a bird called a racham or rachama? We say kiven sheba racham bo rachamim laolam. It says that this bird, when you see a racham, it means that rachamim is going to come to the world, which is, Rashi says, is a reference to matar, to rain. And the idea, as we know, in Eretz Yisrael, it only rains in the rainy season. So basically, this racham would pass by in its migration, or wherever it's going. And so they would, in other words, migration generally happens at the same time every year. So when you would see this bird, you know that the rainy season is coming. So I'm Rav Bibi Barabaya. Rav Bibi Barabaya says it's true that the Racham sends a message, but V'huda Yasiv Amidi V'avid Shirakrak. He says this is only so long as that the bird is sitting on something and makes a shirakrak. So he's saying that if the bird is just standing around, so then when it makes noise, shirakrak is the sound that it makes. So it says that if it's just standing around and makes noise, that means nothing. If it's sitting on something and it makes it shirakrak, then it's coming to say that the rainy season is coming. Now, this says the Gemara of Gemiri, and we have a tradition. The Yasav Arav Sharik, that if it sits on the ground as opposed to sitting on some other item, which is abnormal for it to sit on the ground. Rashi says, that it's sitting and tweeting, making it sound, the shirakrak sound, simin besurahu. It's coming to tell you that it has something important to announce. What is it coming to announce if you have this shirakrak making its noise while it's sitting on the ground? Asa Mashiach. It tells you that Mashiach is going to come. Shenemar, because it says, the pasuk in Zechariah. It says, Eshrika lahem ba'kabtzim, that I'm going to blow or whistle to them and I'm going to gather them. So you see the shirakrak, which makes this sound of Eshrika, like I'm going to whistle or make this sound, comes before akabtzim, that I'm going to gather them in. Gathering them in is a reference to Kibbutz Galius and the coming of Mashiach. So you see that the shirakrak portends the coming of Mashiach. Amalei Adar bar Shimi lemar bar Ravidoi. So he says that Rav Adar bar Shimi says to Mar bar Ravidoi, V'ha hahudi Yosef bekrava v'sharak. So he says, wait a second, we had a story that we had one of these shirakraks was sitting bekrava. Rashi says in the field that was charesha, that was plowed. V'sharak, it was making a shirakrak sound. V'asa galol after moche. And what happened? A stone came out of the sky, Rashi says, and hit him on his head and split his brain. So this wasn't, so we had a case where shirakrak made its noise, and Mashiach didn't come. Instead, the shirakrak got killed. So Amarle, Hahu Badai Have. That was a lying shirakrak. And that's why the shirakrak got killed, because he was a liar. He said that Mashiach is coming. Mashiach really wasn't coming. Okay. Whatever, he was an errant shirakrak. Okay, Taner Rabbanan, second wide line. Orev, and we actually encountered this a little bit before, but Orev ze Orev. So we say that when the pasuk says Orev, that this is a reference to the Orev. The Gemara is going to talk about what that means. Eskol Orev lahavi Orev ha'amki. So when the pasuk says Eskol Orev, as opposed to just Orev, is coming to add the Orev that is Ha'amki, the deep one. We'll see what that means in a minute. Limino, when the pasuk says Eskol Orev Limino, Lahavi Orev Haba Barosh Yonim. This is coming to include an Orev that comes at the, we'll see in a minute. It means like with the head of Yonim, of a pigeon or a dove, or whatever. So in any event, we learn these things. Now, if you remember, yesterday we had the view of Rabbi Eliezer, where Rabbi Eliezer was saying that the snunis levana, or the other one that Rabbi Eliezer was saying, those were the what's added by limino on the orev. And I said to you yesterday that even the Rabbanan, even the Chachamim who argue with him on those, agree that there are some kinds of birds that are added by limineu. So what this was going on was the halacha that says that as long as you recognize the orev, that you can eat any bird that has two simani kashrus if it's not the orev. And the Gemara asked, well, wait a second, there are things that are similar to the orev. So I referenced that the Rabbanan have their own things, so presumably these are those other things that the Rabbanan say are included in the orev. But in any event, you see three categories of orev: a regular orev, the deep orev, and the orev that comes with the pigeons or with the head like a pigeon. So now we're going to analyze this. Braisa Amar Mar Orev ze Orev. So the Gemara asks a question. What does that mean? Orev, this is an orev. He says, Atu kaman kai. Is the orev sitting in front of us that we're pointing and saying, when the Torah says orev, it means this one? In other words, what are you telling me, orev ze orev? So he says, Elaima, but rather should say, orev ze orev uchma. That when it's a regular orev is a reference to the black orev. V'cheinu omer, and then so it says, this is the pasuk in Shir Shirim, which we're familiar with the first three words anyway from Anam Zemiros, Kivutzo Sav Taltalim Shechoros Ka'orev. That Kivutzo Sav, that is his hair, or its hair is curled, Shechoros Ka'orev. They're black like an orav. So you see that an orev is black. Okay, ha'imki. So what's the reference to the one that we say is deep? Is chivra is the one that's white. Now it doesn't mean a white orev. We talked about this yesterday. By definition, an orev is black, but rather, what does it mean? It means it has elements of white in it. V'cheinu omer, and that's why the Gemara is going to say umareu amok min ha'ar, that its appearance is deeper than the skin. This is a reference to baheres, to a form of tzaras, that its appearance is as if it's deeper than the level of the skin itself. Kemare chama hamuka min hatzel, like the sun that's deeper than the shade. So Rashi explains that when you have when you have chama eitzel tzel, when you have a sunlit area next to a darkened area or shadow area, nearest amuka, that the sunlit part appears deeper. He says v'chein kol lavam v'shachar b'basar, when you have white and dark in flesh, nira halavan amuk, that the white looks deeper. So that's kach baheres levanahi, that when the Torah discusses a white baheres, it's a reference to that. Amok min ha'ar, it has this appearance of being deeper than the skin itself. So in any event, what do you see? You see why is it called, why is this orev that has white in it called imki, is because when you have a little bit of white on this otherwise black orev, the white looks deeper than the black, so therefore we're referring to this bird as the orev ha'imki, the deep orev. Continues the analysis of the brisa. Va'orev haba b'rosh yonim. So the last one we said was an orev that comes with the head of pigeons. Amra papa lo tema da asi b'reish yoni. Don't say that it's the birds that fly at the front of the flock of pigeons, presumably because that would be a kosher bird. Ela de dami reishe l'diona. But rather, we're talking about an orev whose head, in some fashion, looks like the head of a pigeon. So it's a orev. It's a non-kosher bird, unlike a yona, which is a kosher bird, but its head has that appearance like the kosher yona. Okay, Tanur Rabbanan, hanates zehanates, that the nates, and now we're getting experts in this after a while. The nates, if you recall, we encountered when we talked about which birds or animals are capable of breaking the membrane of the brain, or we dealt with this in the Mishnah. So in any event, the Brisa says the nates, that's the nates. When it comes limineo, it says the word limineo according to its kind, lahavi as barchiria. So by the way, I referenced this the other day. We're going to see it in the Gemara today, that the way we got to 24, we're going to see in much greater detail how he got to 24, but I said to you the other day that there were 20 birds that were listed, and 4 times that it had limino, limineo, limina. So in any event, so now we're going through each of these brises. We're saying a nates is a nates. When it adds the word limineo, is coming to add a barchiria. So ask the Gemara, my barchiria, what's a barchiria? So in case you didn't know what that is, now I'll tell you that you should know. Amar baya shirinka, it's a shirinka, whatever that is. Okay, Amar Rev Yehuda, ha-chasida, the bird that's called a chasida, zu daya levana. This is the daya, the white daya. So it says the Gemara, Lamar nikra shma chasida. Why is this called a chasida? She'osa chasidos im chavroiseha. Because it does chasidus, it does chesed with its friends. Rashi says, mechalekes mizanoiseha, that it gives out its food. And I think for those of you who remember, I believe the Rav a number of years ago said this in his drasha, which is a famous thing from the Ger Rebbe, that the chasida, the reason it's a non-kosher bird, even though it's nice, you see such a nice bird, it shares its food. So he says because it shares only with its chavroseh, with its the birds that are like it. It doesn't share its food with people that are birds that are not like it. In any event, ha'anafa, the anafa is the bird anafa zu daya regzanis. This is a daya, unlike we just had a daya levana, a white daya. This is the angry daya. So lamar nikra shma anafa. Why is it called anafa? Shemena efes im chavroseo. It's angry with its peers. This is the bird that doesn't play nicely in the sandbox. Okay, Amr Rav Chanan bar Rav Chisda, Amr Rav Chisda, Amr Rav Chanan braid the Rava, Amr Rav. All those names. Okay, Esrin v'arba ofos tmein hein. That there are 24 tamei ofos as we've learned before. So Amr lei Rav Chanan bar Rav Chisda l'Rav Chisda. So Rav Chanan bar Rav Chisda said to Rav Chisda, who had said this in the name of Rav Chanan braid the Rava, Amr Rav. He says Teheicha. He says, how did you get to the count of 24? So just by way of background, as often happens, the halachas of birds that are tamei and tar, animals that are tamei and tar also are listed in Vayikra, and they're repeated in Devarim. So in any event, he says, how did you get to 24? Id Vayikra esrim havu. He says, if If you're relying on the number of birds that are listed in Vayikra, then there's only 20. The Mishnah Torah, and if you're referencing the list of non-permitted birds that is written in Devarim, Esrim Echad Havu, there's 21. So how do you say it's 24? Either it's 20 or it's 21, depending whether you look in Vayikra or Devarim. So the Gemara says, now Rashi is very helpful. That points out to us, if you take a look at the third to last line, the last thin line, Rashi says, B'Sefer Vayikra Ksiv, in Vayikra Ksiv, it's written, Ves hada'a ves ha'aya lumina. So it has a reference to a bird called the da'a and the aya. Ube Mishnah Torah, and in Devarim, it's Ksiv, V'hara'a, it's not a da'a, but a ra'a, Ves ha'aya, which is listed also in Vayikra, V'hadaya, and the daya lumina. So let's just take a minute to analyze the difference between these two things, because that's what we're going to get into right now. So in Vayikra, it's written da'a, but it is not written. And verses in Devarim, it doesn't say da'a, but rather it says something called ra'a. And then ayah is listed in both, but in the case of Vayikra, it says ha'ayah lemina, versus in Devarim, it just says vesa'ayah, but then it adds a different bird, v'hadaya lemina, and it says lemina by a daya. So these are the relevant differences between the Vayikra and Devarim. So whereas Vayikra has a da and an ayah, that Devarim, which has one extra, has a ra'ah, an ayah, and a daya. Okay, so we're going to get into this now. So the Gemara asks, how do you get to 24? Either it's 20 from Vayikra or it's 21 from Devarim. So the Gemara says 4 lines up from the bottom. V'chi tema da'a deksivi b'Vayikra v'lo ksivi b'Mishnah. So he says, okay, so now if you're going to tell me that this da'a bird that's referenced in Vayikra and it's not written in Devarim, shadya ilayu, so let's say you add that, right? So we had 21 birds that were listed in Devarim. So let's start with that because that's a bigger list. We're trying to get up to 24. Now there's this bird da'a that's referenced in Vayikra that's not referenced in Devarim. So let's throw da'a onto the list. So now we're up to 22. But we're still not at 24. Akati Eser Mitrain Havo. This is still only 22. So Amrulay, he said to him, Hachi Amar Avua di Imech Mishmei Derav. So that's what I referenced before. This was Rav Chanan bar Rav Chisda was talking to his father Rav Chisda, and Rav Chisda is referencing now his father-in-law, who was Rav Chanan Brei the Rava, as Rashi explains to us, and the Rav Chanan Brei the Rava, who was the father-in-law of Rav Chisda, said in the name of Rav. But who was Rav Chisda talking to? He was talking to his son, Rav Chanan bar Rav Chisda. So therefore, he's basically, this long thing was said in the name of Rav. So Rav Chisda says to his son, your grandfather, your maternal grandfather, Avua De'imach, the father of your mother, that is Rav Chanan bar Rav Chisda, who is also, that is Rav Chanan Brei the Rava, who is also the father-in-law of Rav Chisda, said in the name of Rav. So that's what he says. Your grandfather says in the name of Rav, Limina, limina, limino, limineu. That you have, in addition to the listings of birds, you have the word limina, twice, limino, limineu. So harekan arba, you have 4 more. So now, great, we can get to 24. But what's the problem? Ask the Gemara, Ihachi eser v'shis havu. Wait a second, we started with 21 from Devarim. We added the da'a from Vayikra. Now we're adding 4, so we were 2 short. We were at 22. But now we jumped ahead to 26, and we were trying to get to number 24. So the Gemara says, okay, Amar Abaya, da'a v'ra'a achasi. That da'a and ra'a are the same bird. So now, and we're going to prove that in a second, but that helps us because we get down to 25, because we've shaved one off. Because how did we get to, before we got to the 4, how did we get to 22 from 21? Because we said da'a is not written in Devarim, so let's take da'a from Vayikra and add it to the list. So Abaya is saying, no, da'a and ra are really the same bird, so you should not be adding any extra bird from Vayikra to Devarim. So we're back down to 21 in Devarim, plus 4 from limino, limineu, limina. So we're going to figure out in a minute that that's still 25, but at least we've gotten ourselves from 26 to 25 by saying that the da and the ra are the same bird. How does he know that they're the same bird? Because if you're going to say that da and ra are really two different birds, one on a base, mechti. Let's see. Mishnah Torah lo osifi huda'asa. Mishnah Torah comes to add things. Generally speaking, Mishnah Torah adds things, but more importantly, Rashi points out, Kedar Minan Lakaman, we're going to say later, we're going to learn in the Brisa, Lama Nishnu Bebehema Mipnei HaShesua Sholinema Bevayikra, Vihi Beria Shieshlo Beis Gaben. So if you remember, we actually encountered this Shesua. We talked about it the other day, that if you darshan Shesua as a Bria B'fnei Atzmo, instead of Shoshas Shesa HaShesua, we said this was the animal that had two backs and two spines. Right? So, in other words, where did that come from? Because when the Torah lists the animals that are not kosher in Vayikra, it does not reference this Shesua, but when it references the criteria for kosher animal in Devarim, it adds Shesua. So it's coming by adding in Devarim, it's coming to tell you not only the list you had before, but also this Shesua. Uba Ofos, the Brisa says, Lo Ashkechad Midi La Sufe. Well, hold on a second. So he's saying, so you see that Devarim is coming to add on to lists, and he said by ophos, by birds, we don't find that it adds birds, but he says Ela dechsiv ra'a de lo ichtiv b'vayikra. So he said b'vayikra hachi. They don't have that in Vayikra. Ela da'a kari b'vayikra. So basically, what he's saying is as follows: that Mishnah Torah adds things that were not in Vayikra. So here's the problem. So we have a problem because Vayikra lists some bird called da'a, but Devarim is supposed to add on to the birds in Vayikra, but it does not list this da'a. It does list something called a ra, but it's not list a da. So the problem is, if Devarim is supposed to add on to Vayikra, then Devarim should surely list the da'a. So Ela shma mina min ra'a v'da'a achasi. So from the fact that Devarim is supposed to be a more inclusive list, and it doesn't list the Da'ah, why not? It must be because this bird that's now new in Devarim, called the Ra'ah, is the same as the Da'ah, and it's called in one place a Ra'ah, and the other place a Da'ah. We're going to see why in a minute. But therefore, the Ra'ah and Da'ah are the same bird. So we got from 21 to 22 by adding the Da'ah. We're saying, no. Abai is saying, don't add the Da'ah. Keep it at 21 because the da is really the same ra'ah which is already included in the 21. So ask the Gemara, v'yakati chaf hei havu. But wait a second, we were trying to get to 24. So fine, you've knocked me down from 22 to 21. But 21 plus 4 is 25. So we still have an extra bird. Amar Abaya, kishem she'ra'ah v'da'a achasi. Just like the ra'ah and da'a are one bird in Vayikra and Devarim, kach aya v'daya achasi. That so too the ayah and the daya are really the same bird, which will get us down to 24. But the problem is, and this is what we're going to have to deal with in a second, is that if the pasuk in Devarim, the pasuk in Vayikra references the ayah. The pasuk in Devarim references both the ayah and the daya. So therefore, we're saying that the ayah and daya are really the same thing. But we're going to have to grapple with the fact that in Devarim it lists both an ayah and a daya. So in other words, how can you say that those are the same birds? Well, we're going to see. So the Gemara says as follows: just like Ra and Da are one bird, so too the Aya and Daya are one bird. The Isal Kadaitach Tarti Inun, because if you think the Aya and Daya are really two different birds, so we have a problem. Mechti, let's see. Mishnah Torah lo osufi huda'asa. That Devarim is supposed to come add things that aren't listed in Vayikra. So here's the problem. So again, if we look back at that Rashi, the helpful Rashi, the pasuk in Vayikra said, "Esada'a ve'esa'aya limina." So it referred to the ayah limina, which added the min of the ayah, right? But then when you look in Devarim, it says the ra'ah ve'esa'aya v'hadaya limina. So now the problem is that in Vayikra it says the ayah and its min, and in Devarim it says the daya and its min. But what's the problem is that Devarim is supposed to be adding on to Vayikra, but in Vayikra we had Aya Lemina. So there's a min of Aya that was added in Vayikra, but it's not referenced in Devarim, because in Devarim, instead of saying Aya, even though it references the Aya, it doesn't say Aya Lemina, it says Ha'aya v'Hadaya Lemina. So the question is, what happened to the min of the Aya? If the Aya and Daya are not the same bird, then what happened to the min of the Aya? Devarim is supposed to be more than Vayikra, and you see that the min of the Aya got lost. So therefore, Elishma Mina Aya v'Daya Achasi. That the Aya and the Daya are really one bird, and that's why the Torah can say in Vayikra Ha'aya Lemina, and in Devarim it can say Hadaya Lemina, because the Aya and the Daya are the same bird. So when it references Lemina, so it switches the language, which one it attaches the word Lemina to between Vayikra and Devarim, but it's all the same bird. So the Gemara says, but once you're telling me that the Aya and Daya says both the Aya, so it's fine. If you wanted to tell me Vayikra calls it an Aya and Devarim calls it a Daya, you want to tell me it's the same bird, okay, no problem. But now you're telling me the Aya and Daya are the same bird, and Devarim it lists both of them. So the Gemara says, Kedisanya, like we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Yomer, Rabbi says, Ekra ni Aya Daya lama nemra. So once I'm saying Aya, why do I need to say Daya? Kidei shlotitain pischem pe lebaldin lachlok shlotahei ata kore aya v'hu kore daya ata kore daya v'hu kore aya. It says basically that we didn't want to get into a circumstance where the Torah, let's say, references aya, and the guy, someone who's arguing with you, says this bird is mutter because it's a daya, it's not an aya. And or conversely, that the Torah says daya, if it wouldn't say ayah, you might have a guy say this is not a daya, it's an ayah. So basically, you see that people would get mixed up between an ayah and a daya, but they're really the same bird. And it's, I used to have, this was a funny story. Many of you might remember, there used to be a barber, Louis Sontag. So he used to have a major baseball card collection in his basement. So my brother was a kid, he was telling his cousin, he says, my barber, Louis, has the best baseball card collection. And his cousin says, no, I'm telling you, my barber, Mr. Sontag, has the best baseball card collection. So in any event, you have an ayah and daya, they're both referring to the same thing, but you don't know that. So therefore it had to write, Lekach kasab b'Mishnah Torah, v'hara, v'sa'aya, v'hadaya lemina. So it referenced both the ayah and daya. And how do we know, and the way we know that the ayah and daya are the same thing is because limina, which it adds in Devarim, is written on the daya, and limino in Vayikra is written on the ayah, and since we didn't want to lose the min of the ayah, it must be the ayah and the daya are really the same bird. So ask the Gemara, Meisvei, Lama nishnu b'behema m'pnei hashesua, u'ba'ofos m'pnei hara'a. So he says, why do we learn by behema mipnei hashesua we add in Devarim, and by ophos we add the ra'ah, whereas in Vayikra it's called the da'ah. So my lab me the behema the hasam lo sufe ophos nami lo sufe. So the Gemara wants to say as follows: we're saying that the ra'ah and the da'ah are really the same thing, and we're also saying the ayah and the daya are the same thing. So the question is, but hold on a second, because you see by shosas, by the shesua, by the behema, it has a smaller list in Vayikra. It adds the shesua and Devarim. We say it comes to add this new creature, the two-back, two-spine creature, right? So you see it's adding something brand new. So too, when in Devarim, when it adds something, it adds the ra'ah, or it adds the daya. So you should say it's not coming to repeat a bird that was said in Vayikra, but rather it's a brand new thing. So this is a question on Abaya's explanation how you got to 24. The Gemara says, Lo hasam lo sufe hachal farushe. So he says, no, it's true that they're coming to do something, but in the case of a behema, when it says shesua, it was coming to add a new animal. In the case of the birds, ayah and daya, or ra'ah and da'ah, we were concerned that people would get mixed up between them, so we listed them both. So basically, when one says ra'ah and the other says da'ah, or da'ah and ra'ah in the right order, it was coming to explain that those are really the same thing. So there's a purpose to adding it, but just because by a behema it added a new concept, doesn't mean the same had to be true by a bird. Rather, by a bird, it was just explaining the concept. Says the Gemara, we now brought we brought Rav that was figuring out how you know that you get to 24. So now the Gemara is going to say, Upligi de Rebbe Avo. This concept is Rebbe Avo does not agree with. And we're basically going to say, we're going to see it's not exactly clear that he's arguing, but once we figure out the logic, we'll see that he's arguing. And what we're going to say is that Rebbe Avo counts only 23. Why? Because the Amr Rebbe Avo, Ra zu Aya. Okay, so now this messes us up a little bit, because we said Ra and Da are the same thing. A equals B. We said Aya and Daya are the same thing. C equals D. But now Rebbe Avo is basically telling us what we thought of B equals C. So now you have a problem. If A equals B and B equals C and C equals D, then they're all the same thing. So the Gemara is going to say, Ra zu Aya. V'lama nikra shmo Ra. So he just goes, why is it called a Ra? This bird, Shara b'yoser, it sees in a great amount, it sees very far. V'cheinu omer, so says the pasuk in Iyov. It says, Nasiv lo yadu ayit. The ayit doesn't know the roadway, the path. V'lo shizafatu ayin aya. And it's not seen or recognized by the eye of the ayah. So what do you see? You see that the ayah is I'm sorry. So you see that it sees very far. So you see the ayah sees a great distance, and that's also the ra'ah. So he's saying the ra'ah and the ayah are the same thing, because you see from the pasuk in Iyov that the ayah sees very far, and that's why it's called the ra'ah. So those are the same thing. So Tana, we learned in a brisa that this bird, which has this great eyesight, Omedis bebavel v'roa nevela beretz Yisrael. So in other words, these birds used to feed on nevela. He could be in Bavel and he could see all the way to Eretz Yisrael if there was a good piece of dead meat for him to go. Midira'a hainu aya. So once you're saying that ra'a is aya, michlal deda'a lav hainu ra'a. So here's what we're going to go through. So we're going to say the problem is if ra equals da equals aya equals daya, so then we have a problem because we're only down to 23 birds. So we're saying, so once you tell me that ra equals aya, and I already know that aya and daya are the same thing, so it must be midara hainu aya michlal deda'a lav hainu ra. So it must be, how do you stay with 24? By saying da'a is not part of this mix. So you said ra and aya are the same thing. We already know that aya and daya are the same thing. So we'll say ra, aya, and daya are one bird, and da'a is a separate bird. So the Gemara says, but wait a second, and this is just going to repeat what Abaye said before. Michti, let's see. Mishnah Torah lo sufi huda asa. Mishnah Torah devarim comes to add things. Ma'ishna hachad siv da'a, ma'ishna hazam the like siv da'a. He says, wait a second. If da'a is written Vayikra and Bamidbar comes to add, and devarim comes to add new things, so then why is da'a not listed there? Elalav shmami na da'a v'ra. So it says da v'ra v'aya achasi. So he says. So he says. So it must be that da and ra are the same thing, and you've already said that ra and I are the same thing. So let's switch it. Let's say that da, ra, and I are the same thing. So then what's left out? We're saying that that daya is left out. So da, ra, I are one thing. He says, wait a second. He says hainu aya. He says, so but you're telling me if ra is the same as aya, machlal the daya lav hainu aya. So you're going to say that daya is the one that's out. It's ra, da, aya are together, and daya is left out. So then the Gemara says, but wait a second. Mashna hasam tichsiv liminei aya, umashna hachad siv liminei aya. But wait a second. Devarim is supposed to have more than Vayikra, and in Vayikra it wrote ha'aya limina. Or limineu. So and in Devarim it didn't list the mineu of the ayah, even though it does list the ayah. So this was the same proof Abaye brought before. Ela daya, it only says adaya limineu. So ela shmamina da v'ra daya v'aya achasi. So he says. So we've proven that aya and daya have to be the same thing because limina is switched between the two. So we're back to proving that ra, da, aya, and daya are all one bird according to Rebbe Avo. Now, if that's true, we're down to 23. So this is the explanation of how the Gemara knew that Rebbe Avo argued on Rav, because Rav said there's 24 kinds of birds. Once you say aya, daya, ra, and da are one bird, Rebbe Avo is down to 23. Tanya, Isi ben Yehuda Aimer. Isi ben Yehuda said, Mea ofas tamei engesh b'mizrach, that there's 100 tamei birds in the east, v'chulan min ayahin. All of them are some variety of the ayah. Tani Avimi Breder Rabavo, Zayin Meos Mini Dagim Hain, that there's 700 kinds of fish, V'ches Meos Mini Chagavim, that there's 800 kinds of different grasshoppers, Ula Ophos in Mispar, to the Ophos there's no count, so we're talking about Tameh things. So the Gemara says, wait a second, Ophos Chavdalad Havu, but there's 24 types of non-kosher birds, not no count. So we say Elo Ophos Tahorim Ein Mispar. So we say rather when it says that there's 700 kinds of Tameh non-kosher fish and 800 kinds of non-kosher Chagavim, that's saying the non-kosher ones. But by Ophos it says since there's only 24 non-kosher ones, there are thousands of other birds. Those are all kosher. Tanya Rabbi Omer Rabbi says, it's clear before the Rebbeinu Shalom who said that the world should be that there are many more behemos tmeos than there are tahoros. Lefikach mana kasu b'tahora. So that's why by behemos the Torah lists the 10 behemos that are kosher. Rashi references that these are, for example, the ayil and the tzvi, it lists 10. So that's why the Torah tells you 10, because it's easier to list the kosher animals than the non-kosher animals, because there are many more non-kosher animals than kosher animals. And it's clear before the Rebbeinu Shalom that there are more tahar birds than there are tameh birds. So therefore, the easier thing to do would be to list all the tameh ones, because there's only 24 of them, whereas there are tons of kosher birds. So says the Gemara, Mashmalan. So what was the point? So it says, Kid Rav Huna Amarav, Amilam Rav Huna Amarav, Mishum Rabbi Meir, that La'olam Yeshnadam Tamido Derech Kitzar. You should always teach as short as you can. So therefore, in the case of animals where there are fewer kosher animals, I'm going to list the kosher animals, and you can infer all the rest are non-kosher. Where by Ophos that there's fewer Tameh Ophos, I'm going to list the Tameh ones, and you can infer from that all the rest are kosher. Very quickly, Amr Yitzchak Oftar Nechel b'Mesoros. You know what? We're late, so we'll pick up here at Mitzvah Shem tomorrow.
Go ahead.